How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Liberty Hour, streaming through Spreaker Studio, the 16 Jackson AJ1 Twitter account, and the A2 Jack YouTube channel. I'm back with my friend Royce, and we were just talking about the Jussie Smollett situation in Chicago and how he was cleared of criminal charges, and I was about to give my thoughts on the entire situation in general. So, I touched on this last week on the show with Miles, and what I think is absolutely disgusting is because of where we are at with racial tension in America today, and there, don't get me wrong, there's tons of racial tension. There's still, white nationalists out there. There's still people who are absolutely despicable, racist, bigoted people. But it gets to a point where whenever you do something like this, or people try to come up with fake racism and try to, make these charges just to try to put themselves in the light and have people feel sorry for them, it really is bad for all causes because it puts the focus away from the people who are really the bad ones, the people who are awful, the white nationalists, those disgusting people, and it hurts your side. And for some people and for some issues, it gives the others almost light. And what I mean by that is some people might see what Smollett does and say, maybe Trump supporters aren't too terrible if people like this are doing this stuff. And I think that, it's just so childish. It's just so disgusting. It makes no sense. It doesn't help their side one bit in general. And that's not the way you go about it. And there's huge issues today when it comes to people who don't talk about the true issues and the true natures of what goes on in society. Most people just focus on the racism side of things to where they'll focus on what somebody said and call them a racist for it or something like that, instead of focusing on the true issues like the drug war, stuff like that. And those are the true issues that are affecting African Americans and affecting Hispanics and race in general in this country. And it's a very sad thing. And in a sad day, in a sad state we're in this country, to see things like this happen because people feel like that's a way to promote an agenda that, racism is so bad, so therefore I have to make something up to show how bad it is. It's just disgusting on all realms, and I think that he should not have been cleared of criminal charges. This was handled terribly, but I'm sorry, for doing something like this, you gotta face some punishment.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I also kind of want to see what are the facts? What is the situation? What is it?
Yeah, and what
I don't want to assume anything.
I'm an assumption that what happened was what they said happened. I know, and that is another thing too. They could be clouding it up, but I mean, this was something that went through the Chicago PD for a few days, and the Chicago PD is to be fair, as far as I know, because Trump doesn't like them. I'm assuming that they're definitely a little bit more of a liberal side of things.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, that's all I'll say on that, I guess. But yeah, go ahead and continue with.
You're also hearing a lot of people saying that it's the Hollywood treatment. He's getting everything handed his way because he's famous, and it's just like, whatever. You could say that, but I don't know. Well, whatever they found. I mean, going back to the whole racism and I'll even go as far as sexism stuff too. We're in a day and age where you could say one thing that is taken wrong, and then in the court of public opinion, you're called racist or sexist, and it doesn't help anybody. I mean, Jordan Peele came out a couple days ago, or even yesterday, I think.
I know exactly
talking about his movie, and said that he didn't plan on having a white man as the leading role in any of his films. And my response when I heard that is like, why wouldn't you? If it works, why would you? I mean, if what you're doing works, why do something else?
I agree.
Do what you do. And everyone took it as, he's racist, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, first of all, the guy made a statement about what has been successful for him. Because you're not in the limelight doesn't mean it's a problem. I mean, that's my big takeaway from this is, yes, it's a disgusting act from Jussie Smollett to even stage it. That's disgusting. But then to sit there and then have all the accusations come out of other people and then just sully them when if they didn't do it, then shame on Jussie Smollett. But also, I'm not going to sit there and be like, I'm sorry that you got blamed for this, because they've probably done some things that are disgusting acts in general.
And I agree. And going off of what you said about the Jordan Peele thing, to go off that, I want to say that I don't think that that's a racist thing. I think that that's just personal preference. Just like I think someone who says that they prefer a certain gender, race, whatever, ethnicity, when it comes to dating, I don't think that makes them racist. That's a personal preference that they have, or what they think makes them successful, or what turns them on, or whatever it may be. But I want to say that I also think that some people who may not be thinking that he's racist for saying that would think that if a white man says, I don't want to cast a black person as my lead, they would think that that's racist. So I think that people, and I'm not saying you are, because I think you would agree with me on this, but I think that...
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think, but most people, though, unfortunately, would go one side or the other on that, where if it was said, a white person, if a white person like Jordan Peele said, I don't want to have a black person cast my lead, they're going to view that as racism, but some other people might not view what Jordan Peele said as racism. Both aren't racism. Both are personal preference and what they feel is more successful in relation to what they're doing with their art. And then this comes down to the whole issue of context. We need to understand context in today's society. Nobody wants to understand context, which is why we see things when people are called out to be sexist, bigots, racist, homophobes, whatever, and when in reality that they're not, and then they get banned from platforms like YouTube and stuff like that. It's a disgrace, and that's a big problem in today's society.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even look at the recent Brie Larson situation with her Captain Marvel movie.
Right.
All she said was, I want more inclusion in my press conferences or press junkets, and everyone spun it as she hates white men, which is completely false. And these people took it to the point where they even said, boycott the movie, which, if you've seen the box office numbers for Captain Marvel, you've known that failed miserably, as in the protests failed miserably. So it doesn't help anyone. You're just picking a fight that means nothing to the overall goal of trying to make the situation better. If anything, you're not helping the situation, and this Jussie Smollett situation, if anything, just gave the disgusting white supremacist side of the situation an excuse to further their acts, because they're like, oh, we're not in trouble for this, and to the point where we're effective and they're faking things on our behalf.
Right.
It's just it's not helping the problem. We just need to find a way to progressively make this a bit better.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to get too far off the issue, but in terms of we're having the conversation of people being called something that they're not, I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't want to defend Trump, but this is one area where I will, is people called him out even a year ago, and when protesters saying, oh, Trump, KKK, racist, sexist, anti-gay, and the anti-gay thing it pissed me off, because not only did Trump have the gay flag at the RNC, but Trump has been actually pushing an agenda around the world for countries that are at least part of the UN, or countries that the U.S. funds, to have a more pro-gay policy, besides Saudi Arabia. That's an issue that I have, too, that he's not consistent with it. But you have those same people. How many of those people that called him anti-gay are calling out Brunei for what they did this week? How many people know about that? Brunei came out this week, and basically they've gone through a struggle in their government deciding if they were going to do this or not. Now they've decided that, well, guess what? Gay sex or whatever, whenever there's, gay acts or something like that, they're going to get stoned to death. Basically, they're implementing Sharia law in Brunei, and that's one of the countries that the U.S. financially supports. Hopefully Trump says something about that, but how many of those people that call him anti-gay do you think are going to go out and see something like that and call out against that? That's a big problem, because even though we focus on national politics, the international world and the global world we live in has a huge impact as well on this country, and that's something that should be called out as well. That's just something that I wanted to just rant on, because that's what I've been feeling the last couple of days.
I completely agree. I'm in a political class right now at Sac State, and one of the main focuses in the class is just how sad it is that we don't care what happens in other countries. Yeah. It's irrelevant because it doesn't happen on our soil. And if it happens on our soil, we treat it as if it's like a capital crime. But everywhere else, it's not here.
Well, almost a perfect transition with what you just said goes into something that happened a little over a week ago, actually almost a couple weeks ago. But It has to do about the New Zealand shooting. And so this is an article that came out of the New York Times. New Zealand memorial service for shooting victims draws thousands. Christchurch, New Zealand, lamenting quote, the world has been stuck in a vicious cycle of extremism, breeding extremism. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand said at a national memorial service for the Christchurch attack victims on Friday that the dangerous cycle must end. Her call for a collective global response to violence and terrorism based in, quote, our humanity came 2 weeks after a gunman killed 50 worshippers in attacks on 2 mosques in the city. She came out basically in terms of the gun control side of things and pretty much banning any not I don't want to say assault weapons because that's too basic, but basically banning any automatic rifles and stuff like that. And they're already having buyback programs and stuff like that. And I want to get your thought of. Do you think that what New Zealand is doing in response to this mass shooting in terms of having a buyback program, in terms of banning these certain types of guns in general, and having what is your thought on that? Do you think that is successful? Do you think that will lead to positivity in New Zealand? Overall, what's your thoughts?
I think it will be successful. I think it will, and as well as make things a little more positive in New Zealand. It's just, I want to go, and I know that like these weapons are like available here in the United States. It's, in my opinion, I don't see why we need AR-15s in our houses. And I know it's like, the Second Amendment, we get arms, we can have them, they're all over the place. I'm like, I get that, but like we can get shotguns if you want to go hunting. Go ahead. You can have a pistol for defense, whatever. But I don't see the need for an assault rifle, which is the abbreviation for AR, in our homes. And to go back on, and also go back on the article you're reading, and hearing the word extremist and extremism, can we just call it what it is?
Terrorism.
It's terror. It's terrorism.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's no difference. Just because it was from somebody other than what America calls a terrorist doesn't mean it's not a terrorist.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't 100% care. Agree.
It's like I don't care. Like if and this is horrible, but if a white male, white supremacist walked into the Oakland Coliseum during a baseball game and shot it up, would we be calling it extremism? That's terrorism.
I guess my issue when it comes to these things isn't and that is an issue, don't get me wrong, isn't the extremism versus terrorism thing. My issue is we don't need to be sharing the names of these people on headlines and stuff when it's done in America, which seems to be done so much more. What I will say is in the past couple of years, I think we've shifted it to where that still happens, but there's more focus on the victims, which is good in terms of getting their names out there so the people know who they are. But I don't like the idea that we have to say the names of these people who commit these acts, because then they get viewed as martyrs by the crazy, disgusting idiots, or not idiots, but the disgusting, crazy psychos out there in the world.
I completely agree with you. I don't understand why we still, as news people, are like, we're still looking for the identity of the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Why are we?
I'm a journalist, and I disagree with that. I was one of the only people in my class that actually thought that we shouldn't be posting those people's names. I don't want to cuss on my show. It's a goddamn joke. I'm trying to actually get better at cussing, by the way, if you haven't noticed. It's a goddamn joke that people think that we need to be posting that out there. What purpose does that serve? How much more are people going to get out of that piece that doesn't do anything?
I agreed. I don't want to go on to CNN and have a story of like, and then the just about the shooting in New Zealand, and then the picture of the guy who committed the act is all over the place on these news channels. They're like, this is the guy that did it. And then it's just like, why are we focusing on him?
Yeah.
Why are we focusing on him? These people have suffered in just have gone through hell. And we're like, okay, you guys can just take care of your problems. Meanwhile, we're going to focus on you, and you're going to be the problem. But what you're doing is you're like, to some of these like people like him who did it are like, wait, if I do this, then I get on all the media platforms. then I'm famous.
Mm-hmm.
And then it encourages the behavior. I mean, that's the biggest problem with social media. I can sit here today on Twitter and see the trend of New Zealand, and I tap on it, and it immediately shows me the name of the person who did it. It shows me the entire layout of what has been revealed, and the fact that he did it.
And
He
I
did a
have to
Facebook
interrupt you
Live
one final time. We'll be right back for part 7, probably the final part of the Liberty Hour.